Hello, everybody. I'm Cody.
And I'm Brent.
And we are the Hugonauts, here to review and discuss with you the best sci-fi novels of all time. This week, a big list of sci-fi novels. We're going to talk about the Hugo nominees for 2023.
Yeah. So this is books that came out in 2022. This is a pretty weird year for the Hugo Awards. The nominees came out a couple of months late, and it's been pretty disorganized, and it's kind of a strange list of nominees. So we're still going to rank them for you so you know what to read, but we're also going to tell you about 3 amazing sci-fi books that came out last year that should have also made the nominations list. So we're going to talk about 9 books today. It's going to be great.
Yes, and, unlike other episodes, we're kind of pointing you towards the recommendations at the end here for this one. So those will be good. Those will be good choices from 2022. Next episode, we are going to be talking with Peter Watts, the author of Blindsight, among other novels. That's going to be really, really fun. I'm excited to do another author interview and with Peter Watts, nonetheless, who we love. So that's going to be sweet.
Blindsight. Yeah, I'm so excited. Crazy excited. It's going to be awesome.
Yep. So lots of exciting things happening here in Hugonaut land. And one of those things might be a not rated book on the list of Hugo nominees this year. Why don't you give us the first one, Brent?
Yeah. Okay. So coming in at, we're not giving it a ranking, is Nona the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir. That's because this is the 3rd book in a series, and sometimes you can kind of jump into the middle of the series. Not this one. So it's fantasy and sci-fi both. Leans kind of more fantasy, but it's the 3rd book in the Locked Tomb series. Here's the setup. Her city is under siege. The zombies are coming back, and all Nona wants is a birthday party. In many ways, Nona is like other people. She lives with her family, has a job at her local school, and loves walks on the beach and meeting new dogs. But Nona is not like other people. 6 months ago, she woke up in a stranger's body, and she's afraid she might have to give it back. The whole city's falling to pieces. A monstrous blue sphere hangs on the horizon, ready to tear the planet apart. Blood of Eden forces have surrounded the last cohort facility and wait for the Emperor Undying to come calling. Their leaders want Nona to be the weapon that will save them from the 9 houses. Nona would prefer to live an ordinary life with the people she loves, with Pyrrha and Camilla and Palamedes, but she also knows that nothing lasts forever. And each night, Nona dreams of a woman with a skull-painted face. So that might be a little confusing, and that's because if you try to read this book like I did without reading the first 2 books in the series, it is extremely confusing. Learn from me, don't do it. That's
otherwise, though?
Yeah, otherwise, I mean, the writing is really funny. Funny without that being like the point of the book. It's not a joke book, but there is like a lot of funny writing in it. That's makes the dark world feel not so scary. Yeah, I would say, you'll love it if you've read the other Locked Tomb books and you're excited about it. You won't love it if you haven't read the rest of the series. Pretty simple one. So, yeah, that's it for the Locked Tomb.
All right. Just like on the Nebulas.
Yes, for sure. What do you think should be number 5 for the Hugos?
Number 5 is a new one, a non-crossover from the Nebulas. This is The Spare Man by Mary Robinette Kowal. And it goes as such. Tesla Crane, a brilliant inventor and an heiress, is on her honeymoon on an interplanetary space liner cruising between the moon and Mars. She's traveling incognito and is reveling in her anonymity. Then someone is murdered, and the festering chowderheads who run security have the audacity to arrest her spouse. Armed with banter, martinis, and her small service dog, Tesla's determined to solve the crime so that the newlyweds can get back to their canoodling and keep the real killer from striking again.
The back of the book really says festering chowderheads. That's a real description of the book. And canoodling, yes. Both
and
are real
so
things.
The reason I used the blurb is because it's a good representation of this book. So you'll know kind of how you feel about it based on how you feel about the language of the blurb. But essentially, it's a straightforward kind of murder mystery, like Murder on the Orient Express type deal, where they're all locked in a ship. Who done it? It's got some robotics and some kind of cool tech ideas. It is science fiction. They're on this interplanetary spaceship. But it is a little bit it's immature, and what was an example? They keep talking about the newlyweds keep talking about having sexy times with each other, and they just keep talking about it, but they're never actually doing anything about it. It's got kind of a weird tone
Cody
about
loved this one,
the
as you can
romance
tell,
stuff.
as you can really tell.
Yeah.
Well, okay. All that said, who might like this book?
You'd probably like it if you like kind of like straight ahead mystery novel with a sci-fi twist.
For sure. And who won't like it?
People who want something a little more serious or thought-provoking, or even a better mystery story like City in the City or something like that. Anyways, Brent, what's number 4?
I have good news. I liked this book more than Cody liked the Spearman. I have very good news for you. Okay, so this is The Daughter of Dr. Moreau by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. It's historical fiction / with some sci-fi elements. Here's the scoop. So Carlotta Moreau is a young woman growing up on a distant and luxuriant estate, safe from the conflict and strife of the Yucatan Peninsula, the only daughter of a researcher who's either a genius or a madman. Montgomery Lawton is a melancholic overseer with a tragic past and a propensity for alcohol, an outcast who assists Dr. Moreau with his experiments, which are financed by the Lizaldes, owners of magnificent haciendas and plentiful coffers. The hybrids are the fruits of the doctor's labor, destined to blindly obey their creator and remain in the shadows. A motley group, part human, part animal monstrosity. All of them live in a perfectly balanced and static world, which is jolted by the abrupt arrival of Eduardo Lizalde, the charming and careless son of Dr. Moreau's patron, who will unwittingly begin a dangerous chain reaction. For Moreau keeps secrets, Carlotta has questions, and in the sweltering heat of the jungle, passions may ignite. Okay, so here's the deal with this book. So it starts off it starts off pretty slow. The first half to 3/4, I honestly did not like very much, but the ending, it does stick the landing. It doesn't do the thing that you exactly think it's going to do. The romance is, they don't do the straight ahead romantic thing, and it gets exciting. There's some really exciting stuff that happens at the end of the book. So yeah, and there's some good. I also learned some interesting things about the history of southern Mexico that I didn't know. But yeah, it did take a minute to get into it.
Okay, well, who is going to love it?
I think you're going to love it if you are a Silvia Moreno-Garcia fan. I mean, she's a big writer who's written some big books. This is sort of her foray, dipping her toe into sci-fi. She's generally more of a fantasy person. Anyway, or if you love sensual stories that explore the tragedies of the past. While it's not all romance, there's
Did you write that copy yourself, bud?
I did. Yeah, this one I did write.
That
yeah,
was a good
but there's
one.
a lot of looking hot and swimming in the cenote and banging in various places. That does happen quite a bit. You won't love it if you're looking for a lot of plot. Or a book driven by the speculative fiction elements. Despite this being a book about the daughter of Dr. Moreau, it's just sort of taken as a given that he can do this insane magic with these hybrids, and we never really talk about it at all. It's not the point of the book in any way. So if you're looking for something that's driven by the speculative fiction stuff, this ain't it.
Okay, well, how about number 3, which is another Nebula repeat, Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher.
Yeah, there are 3 books that were nominated for both awards this year. So if you watched the Nebula episode, you've already heard about Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher, which is a fantasy book, straight fantasy. And here's the setup. After years of seeing her sisters suffer at the hands of an abusive prince, Mara, the shy, convent-raised third-born daughter, has finally realized that no one is coming to their rescue. No one except for Mara herself. Seeking help from a powerful dust wife who can communicate with the dead, Mara is offered the tools to kill a prince, if she can complete 3 impossible tasks.
So what is Nettle and Bone? I mean, it's not a sci-fi novel, but...
No, yeah, this is a fantasy book. It's pretty straightforward, but there's a lot of things it does right. The relationship between the fairy godmother and the dust wife, these 2 old ladies, one of whom is a grouch and one of whom is just sees everything in the rosiest light, is so funny. The demon chicken, honestly, lands a lot of great punchlines. Can't even talk. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, Baka, but Baka, really, I laughed a lot of times at somehow. Yeah, so I think there actually is a lot to like here. There weren't a lot of surprises, but there is a lot to like.
And so you're going to like it if?
Yeah, you're going to like it if you want a quick, fun, traditional story about fighting for what is right, where the girl gets the guy and it all ends well.
And you're not going to like it as much if?
If you are looking for something to surprise you, or you want a sci-fi book on the Sci-Fi Show, I guess we should say that. But yeah, if you want a surprise, it's not gonna find it here.
Yeah, comfort. You will find one of those two things between science fiction and surprise. You'll find science fiction in the Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi, which is number 2. And here's what happens in that novel. When COVID-19 sweeps through New York City, Jamie Gray is stuck as a dead-end driver for food delivery apps. That is, until Jamie makes an odd delivery to an old acquaintance. Tom, who works at what he calls an animal rights organization, quotes for those listening, Tom's team needs a last-minute grunt to handle things on their next field visit. Jamie, eager to do anything, immediately signs on. What Tom doesn't tell Jamie is that the animals his team cares for are not here on Earth. Not our Earth, at least. In an alternate dimension, massive dinosaur-like creatures named Kaiju roam a warm and human-free world. They're the universe's largest and most dangerous panda, and they're in trouble. It's not just the Kaiju Preservation Society that's found its way to the alternate world. Others have, too. And their carelessness could cause millions back on our Earth to die. Okay, this is a fun Scalzi story. I mean, as I alluded to at the top, sci-fi, it's Scalzi, not that many surprises, but that in itself will not be that much of a surprise to you if you like John Scalzi. Scalzi is a writer who just writes these one-offs. A lot of times they're kind of like, what would happen in this cinematic universe or this literary universe, this other IP, like who are like his book Red Shirts about the red shirts in Star Trek, essentially. And they're silly, funny, they're albeit predictable. They're good reads.
Yeah, the dialogue is like so preposterous. No one talks like that, but also it totally works because it's just fun. Like no actual humans talk the way John Scalzi's characters talk. But you're going to like reading it because like they're so flip and ridiculous. Like every line is just like, oh, okay, we're making a joke. Great. I'm into that.
Yeah. And it's also, I will say, I think he did a fabulous job for a 54-year-old of capturing the like millennial cringe, the millennial Gen Z, like
Zoomers.
cringy
I do not
language.
Want to be associated
okay, you don't
with these
want to be
characters.
Either way, the younger like parlance and, but making it like, kind of making fun of it, but for the right reasons, like not making fun of those generations, but it is silly. And I think he captured that well. And I think you're going to love this book if you want a fun escapist adventure. It's quick. It's easy.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Not going to like it.
That would be if you're looking for something that's going to get you the thinking or feeling emotions. If you're looking for something that really engrosses you, then this is not the one. But you could definitely read it as a palate cleanser between two of those types of books, and it'd be perfect for that.
For sure.
What's number 1, Brent? Same as
Number
the Nebula,
1.
isn't it?
No, that's not true.
Oh, sorry. That was high. It was
high on our Nebula list, but yeah, the book we think should win the Hugo Award this year is a fantasy novel called Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. That's how much we liked this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the scoop. After a lifetime of bounties and bloodshed, Viv is hanging up her sword for the last time. The battle-weary orc aims to start fresh, opening the first ever coffee shop in the city of Thune. But old and new rivals stand in the way of success, not to mention the fact that no one has the faintest idea what coffee actually is. If Viv wants to put the blade behind her and make her plans a reality, she won't be able to go it alone. But the true rewards of the uncharted path are the travelers you meet along the way. And whether drawn together by ancient magic, flaky pastry, or a freshly brewed cup, they may become partners, family, and something deeper than she ever could have dreamed. So here's the deal. That may sound like a very cute premise that's, kind of like too twee. But I was like so prepared to hate this book based on the premise, and then I really liked it. It's just super well executed. The characters are all lovely. The food descriptions are great, although reading the menu for the 37th time I maybe did get a little tired of. But in any case, it's just like a super well done book. And yeah, so I think, it's a weird year in the Hugos, but like we think this book should win.
Well, wait, let's finish it off. Who's gonna love Budgets and Lattes?
Yes. You're going to love it if you want an uplifting, fun, character-driven book with a quirky, fun conflict. I think if you are a Becky Chambers fan, like you have got to read this book. It's right up that alley.
And you're not going to like it if
you're looking for lots of action or science fiction, obviously.
Conflict.
Yeah, big conflict. This is not that.
Yeah, but it is good.
Yeah, it is good. This is a good book, but we're a science fiction show. We just told you the book that should win the Hugo this year is a fantasy novel. We could not leave it like that. No way.
We wanted to leave you with, as a recommendation show, like stuff we really loved that we think you should read. So yes. Here are 3 novels from 2022 that could have been on the list. This one was on the Nebula list, for example. We had it winning. It didn't quite, but we'd like to think it got second. That's The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Nayler. Sci-fi, yay, and here's what happens. Rumors begin to spread of a species of hyper-intelligent, dangerous octopus that may have developed its own language and culture. Marine biologist Dr. Hanwin, who spends her life researching cephalopod intelligence, will do anything for the chance to study them. The transnational tech corporation Dianima has sealed the remote Kondau archipelago, where the octopuses were discovered, off from the world. Dr. Nguyen joins Dianima's team on the islands, a battle-scarred security agent and the world's first android. The octopuses hold the key to unprecedented breakthroughs in extra-human intelligence. The stakes are high. There are vast fortunes to be made by whoever can take advantage of the octopus's advancements, and as Dr. Nguyen struggles to communicate with the newly discovered species, forces larger than Dianima close in to seize the octopuses for themselves. But no one has yet to ask the octopuses what they think and what they might do about it.
Octopus
book that's got some octopuses in it, but it's more about a lot of different science fiction subjects. It's near future, so there's some climate stuff in it. There's a lot of, like we alluded to in the summary, transnational corporations, versus nations, AI in a cool way, in a bunch of different cool ways. There's a lot going on there, and yeah, it's a great modern sci-fi read, near future, one-off. Kind of more of a rare thing these days, to be honest.
Yeah, and the other exciting thing about this was Ray Naylor's first novel. So this is like a new sci-fi writer we've got to look forward to. So that's awesome. Great to have somebody new on the scene who's great at this. It's an awesome book.
Yeah, totally. And you're going to love it if you enjoy like exploration of a lot of different sci-fi tropes. And then marine biology, there's some chapters on that. Semiotics, the study of symbols and language. And you want a standalone novel that keeps raising questions after you finished it. But you won't probably like it if, I guess, you're expecting an action saga with a lot of octopus characters, a la like Children of Ruin or like another uplift like David Brin's stuff. Because it's not that, but it is still awesome.
There's some octopuses, but it's not like just about the octopus.
It's one that we had a hard time like being like, you won't love it. Like, just don't expect an army of octopuses when you go in, and you'll probably like it.
For sure.
Okay, what else we got?
Next is Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. So we have an episode talking about Station 11, which was like a post-apocalyptic book, but there's some argument about whether it was sci-fi. She has resolved this argument for everyone by being like, yep, I'm a sci-fi writer. Let me write a sci-fi book. So here's the scoop with Sea of Tranquility. Edwin St. Andrew is an 18-year-old who crosses the Atlantic by steamship, exiled from polite society following an ill-conceived diatribe at a dinner party. He enters the forest, spellbound by the beauty of the Canadian wilderness, and suddenly hears the notes of a violin echoing in an airship terminal, an experience that shocks him to his core. 2 centuries later, A famous writer named Olive Llewellyn is on a book tour. She's traveling all over Earth, but her home is the second moon colony, a place of white stones, spired towers, and artificial beauty. Within the text of Olive's best-selling pandemic novel lies a strange passage. A man plays his violin for change in the echoing corridor of an airship terminal, as the trees of a forest rise about him. When Gaspard Jacques Roberts, a detective in the black-skied Night City, is hired to investigate an anomaly in the North American wilderness, he uncovers a series of lives upended. The exiled son of an earl driven to madness, a writer trapped far from home as a pandemic ravages Earth, and a childhood friend from the Night City who, like Gaspard himself, has glimpsed the chance to do something extraordinary that will disrupt the timeline of the universe. So yeah, this is a really interesting book. Like, I think all of Emily St. John Mandel's book, it's told through like multiple perspectives that at the beginning it's unclear how they connect, but you get like a deep taste of these characters.
With a lot of like time disconnection between the sections, not told chronologically, like
Yep.
She's a master at that style. Like all of her books are like that. And I think she just leaned into it here. Like, okay, if everyone's going to call me out on this style, I'm going to make one that's also subject matter about time travel.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's philosophical. This is soft sci-fi. There's time travel happening with no attempt to explain it. So anyway, it's soft sci-fi, but it's really well done. And it did win the Goodreads Choice Award for Best Sci-Fi Book of 2022. So like a lot of people liked this book. We're not alone in this. Yeah, it's definitely a good one. Yeah,
I loved it. I love all of St. John Mandel's books. And this was not, this is on that list too.
For sure. Yeah. Who else do you think would love this one?
And who else would I? A character-driven sci-fi that's more literary, and you really like getting into the characters' minds and reading something that feels very human and feels like you as a modern person could step in and have these same experiences. It's good lit, and you want to think about time travel a little bit because it's not realistic ever. So suspend your disbelief.
Time travel backward anyway, never realistic.
True. And who's maybe it's not for.
On that note, if you are looking for sci-fi that like explains the science, or even just obeys all the rules of physics, like if when that happens it drives you crazy, like this is going to drive you a little crazy. It's like the fundamental conceit of the book that like, yeah, we can just do time travel. So like if that's going to grind your gears, this isn't for you. But otherwise, if you can suspend your disbelief, a lot of interesting stuff happening.
Yes. Yep. Loved it, and loved this next one too. The last one on the list, Eyes of the Void by Adrian Tchaikovsky, who wrote Children of Time, Children of Ruin. For those familiar, it's actually the second book in the final Architecture series. So I'm going to give you the summary of Shards of the Earth, the first book. So don't spoil anything, but it gives you the gist of the trilogy anyways. Idris has neither aged nor slept since they remade him in the war. And one of humanity's heroes now scrapes by on a freelance salvage vessel to avoid the attention of greater powers. After the Earth was destroyed, mankind created a fighting elite to save their species, and enhanced humans such as Idris. In the silence of space, they could communicate mind to mind with the enemy. Then, their alien aggressors, the architects, simply disappeared, and Idris and his kind now became obsolete. But 50 years later, he and his crew have discovered something strange abandoned in space. It's clearly the work of the architects, but are they returning? And if so, why? First of all, the name The Architects for like the bad guy mystery, so good. That's such a good word for this alien intelligence. It's a really fun series. The third one just came out in 2023. Also, I haven't read it yet, but the first two are awesome, both Shards and Eyes of the Void. It's really an excellent space opera. Tchaikovsky is just so good at these modern space operas, and it's it's got all sorts of different alien styles, and they all interact with the human characters.
So
who
good
are
at
also
writing
enhanced.
aliens. He's
He's a biologist.
Yeah.
He studied biology. So Yeah, his alien writing's really cool, and it's got a lot of action. It's thrilling. There's a lot of good mystery. So if you're looking for one of those kind of action space operas, this book is definitely for you, especially if you already like Tchaikovsky.
What about, who's not going to like it? What's the flip side, I guess?
Right. I guess if you're looking for something more literary that's about the human condition, like something like Sea of Tranquility, where you're like, I just want to like live with some characters and think about new things about my life and how they might affect him. Eyes of the Void and the final architecture is very escapist, space opera, big stakes. So all three of those novels are awesome, and we'll see who wins. We'll see who wins the Hugo this year.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting. I would be surprised if it wasn't Litter and Lattes, honestly, but you never know what's going to happen. But, even if you were a little disappointed with the Hugo nominees this year, hopefully you heard some things that you're excited about, our little bonus part of the list. So, there was a lot of good stuff that came out in 2022, and sometimes you just got to dig through it. So we dug for you. Now you can read the good stuff.